Hey guys, welcome back to the Diet Doc Life Mastery Podcast. We're going to talk about something, Kori, that we never talk about, right? Flexible dieting.
What's that?
We probably mention that, at least once a week. But guys, I am Joe Klemczewski, founder of the Diet Doc, here with Dr. Kori Propst. And we recently recorded a Life Matters feature because I do believe you can't talk about this kind of thing enough, diet methodology. And we do run the gamut talking about intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, keto, just all the different ways that people try to diet and eat. But we recorded a 1 hour feature, or maybe even 70 or 75 minutes, Kori, last time I was in San Diego. And we're going to release that, guys. We did put it up on our channel, and we're going to release it now publicly. But it's a really good look at what flexible dieting is and what it isn't. So where it originated. But what I want to talk about today is really where I think it's going to go. And we have a little bit of a responsibility, I think, to make sure that we guard it as a tool to be used effectively. Because Kori, I know you work still with a lot of clients, and you probably get a lot of people now who have seen it, heard of it, have experienced it, but they still might not really get it.
Yeah. No. Yes, I agree with you. No, they don't get it. I think we overcomplicate things a lot of times, and we're being approached by a lot of clients who have tried everything under the sun and still aren't finding what's most effective for them specifically. So, we released the emotional eating feature, and now we have this flexible dieting feature, and I think this is really going to help people to understand more about what not just dieting is all about, but how to eat and feed yourself in a manner that is going to net you the best energy and vitality and a weight that has you being comfortable in your body. So
here's what's been interesting in the last couple of years. You know where this originated from and the stories behind it, but because we are a little bit introverted and not quick to toot our own horns or get on social media, a lot of the story kind of died and just kind of resurged around the planet with different coaches who have worked with us in the past. So a couple years ago, some friends of mine, especially Paul Ravella, decided, man, we need to define this. We need to discuss this. Tyler Mayer, our own Diet Doc owner in Phoenix, got the URL Flexible Dieting and created a company called FlexEd. So a lot of people now get really excited about interviewing me and saying, man, you are the godfather of flexible dieting. Let's talk about this and let's make sure everybody understands it. And I think that's been a really good, useful discussion point to come back to making sure that people are using it correctly. So here's what made me really want to do this. I spoke to a guy yesterday who owns 6 gyms, growing like crazy. He's going to start franchising his gym internationally. And he was so excited to tell me. He said, man, I've followed you for years. I use all your stuff. Matter of fact, if you go to my website, we call it macro coaching. And he's got this infomercial depth to all of the before and after stories. And the one thing people talk about is the flexibility, which is why this even came about. It's just simply the ability to eat foods with a budget mentality. So the premise is not just that somebody gives you a rigid meal plan. That's kind of the anathema that we've stood against, is rigid structure that just, drives people into the ground.
Right.
But if you look at food, calorie intake, energy balance as broken down into the macronutrients we need, protein, carbs, and fat. This was something that I started looking at almost 25 years ago. Matter of fact, it was 26 years ago in my own personal diet, but then started writing about for some magazines about 20 years ago. And to me, it's just not complicated. It's common sense. It's math, right? So you have a certain amount of protein, carbs, and fat you need. why not just do the math and eat what you want? But where, Kori, do you see now that people kind of contrast that with meal plan dieting? Where do you think people get stuck? What is their stumbling block with flexible dieting?
Well, I think, Joe, that the idea of flexible dieting sounds really, really good to people. We can eat what we want, still meet our goals, be able to have the foods that we like, and not be married to something super restrictive. At the same time, here's me going into psychology mode. We also want a huge level of certainty, especially when we're starting out with a goal. We need strong boundaries around what we're to do and not do and what's going to be most effective for us. And so having a meal plan initially feels really safe. So I think that if we look at this as a macrocosm, like us being flexible as coaches to be able to say, okay, let's start there. Let's start with a meal plan and then learn how to build in more flexibility. We really help our clients to be able to learn what that actually means. I do want to say that I've noticed too that we tend to operate on extremes. We have flexible dieting in the middle. We have if it fits your macros on the right end of the extreme, and we have just rigid meal plans on the left. And I see the pendulum swinging back and forth, but eventually people who have been around the block a few times end up in the middle again with the flexible piece, because they see that neither one of these things works. If it fits your macros camp ends up like following macronutrients to an extreme to where, say you get done at the end of the day and you've got 25 carbs left. You're full, you're not hungry at all, you feel good, but then you look at your food log and you're like, oh, I have 25 carbs left. Let me stuff my face. So I don't see it promoting a good level of just health and trust in our bodies and our skills, really, the knowledge that we're, accumulating through the process. So
yeah, I think too many people, especially if you're not in the nutrition industry, too many general population lifestyle consumers look at it as an actual diet. So it's you can pick this diet, that diet, or you can pick flexible dieting. And I've tried to kind of brand the term structured flexibility to remind people it's a principle. And this may be why even 25 years ago, I never thought this was something to monetize, to trademark, to even try and push as a thing. It's just math. It's just math. If you have a calculator, you're a flexible dieter. You got food labels and a calculator, you're good to go. You don't have to buy a book. You don't have to do anything. But when you look at it as a diet, then you get into those traps, like you said, of, well, I'm just supposed to figure this out all day long as I go. It's just a bunch of numbers and it can become complicated. And like you said, some people can take it to the extreme of thinking, hey, this is just a gimmicky way of eating all kinds of shitty food and get away with it. But, if you put it next to some things like even intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, I also think those are best looked at as principles. Right. Oh, I don't have to eat every 90 minutes. Oh, I don't have to eat 12 small meals a day. I can have 2 or 3 big meals, and I don't have to have breakfast as soon as I wake up. But as soon as you start putting some very rigid boundaries on that, saying, no, you must have this 8-16 window, and you must do this, and you must do that, now it becomes a, quote, diet. And that's not what flexible dieting is at all. You can still have structure like you described. We talk ad nauseum about these principles and how you and I eat, probably the same 3 or 4 meals every single day with 1 or 2 meals that are a little bit flexible. And, so what if I'm 20 grams under on my carbs today? I might be 20 grams over. So we're looking at net weekly averages. We're looking at ranges instead of, being that hyper specific.
Yes. And that really helps to relieve some anxiety and that sense of pressure to do everything exactly right and spot on. Because you can't be perfect. So to even try it's just, it's unrealistic.
You know, the clients who still do the best, and I love that I work with a lot of clients of all levels of experience, and some of them are, unbelievably, superstars in the physique world. Some of them are just getting started with their first diet, their first coach. Some of them have all kinds of health complications. The people who do the best, the people who lose 50 pounds, 100 pounds. We had one of our program owners who sent me a before and after of a client who just crossed the 140 pound mark. And those are the people who love the flexibility because they really can deviate when they want, but they still create their schedules and their routines, and they get in the habit of using the foods they like. And I remember going all the way back to when I was in my early 20s as, a young pro bodybuilder, maybe even just leading up to those first big wins, figuring out, things like the glycemic index really is a good tool. Like I know these more complex foods, and if I, eat this way, and I could figure out that this meal for breakfast, helps keep me fuller longer. And those are things that matter. I mean, you still need to figure out some structure and diet/nutrition principles that just work for you, whether, regardless of how much flexibility you want to use.
I agree with you, Joe. I like the word principles. I have some food rules just because they work for me. They create a boundary, but they feel good. They don't necessarily, the rules aren't running me, if that makes sense. They provide a level of safety and just comfort around what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And I think that if you have a really good flexible dieting coach, that's something that they're teaching you how to understand about yourself. What's working for you and what's not, and why. And not just food-wise and how it's influencing your body and your energy levels and things like that, but emotionally. How are you feeling about this process you're engaged in? Because those emotions are really going to kind of give you some good cues as to whether you're doing something that's in your service or not. Because I work with plenty of people who come to me with binge eating, emotional eating, and when I look at what they've done in the past and the diets that they've been involved in and just how they view their bodies, it becomes very, very apparent that the behaviors that they're engaging in they're not setting them up on a path that's going to be enduring. So
yeah, and what a great word to end it on, because my goal in doing this bit of a podcast as an introduction to our Life Matters feature on flexible dieting is to make sure that these are enduring principles that just become the foundation of best practices for nutrition and dieting. So as you were talking, it made me think, maybe I really do need to come out with kind of the principles of flexible dieting, the rules, because again, it does mean something different to a lot of people. But for you guys who are interested, do check out on our channel the 2 Life Matters features we have so far. We try and keep these podcasts between 15 and 20 minutes so we can get you just, quick content. But Kori and I, when we get together, we sit down and we take a big, complicated topic and we really pick it apart. So far we have one on emotional eating and we have one on flexible dieting. And hopefully we'll get something planned here for next month, because I know I'm going to see you in Nashville again.
I've got my idea.
All right. We'll work on that.
And this one was fun. The flexible dieting one I enjoyed it, Joe, because we take a dive into our individual nutritional strategies and why we do what we do and how it works for us. And they're very different, but they're both effective.
Absolutely. And so with that, guys, we will let you go. And thanks again for liking, sharing, especially sharing, because things like this, again, there's so much misinformation or misunderstanding about this topic. that for you guys to, share this link, especially the Life Matters feature, I think you can get a lot of people much better starts with their own nutrition journeys, just understanding where this stuff came from and how to best use it. So thank you, Kori, and you guys, we will catch you next time.
Thanks, guys.